Prasa is promising to strengthen security at its stations. The railway agency says it's planning to recruit at least 3,000 security officials. This comes after some of its stations suffered losses due to theft and vandalism. Now, some of the infrastructure were left unattended after the public protector found that security contracts were irregularly awarded. Let's speak now to the Prasa spokesperson, Makhosini Mgijwa, about this development. Mr. Mgijwa, thank you very much for your time. Firstly, let's start with how soon will these security personnel be on the ground?
Good morning, Xoli, and thank you very much for having me. The administrator of Prasa, Mr. Bongisizwe Mpondo, will this morning make an announcement to that effect. That announcement will give the detail as to where exactly people are going to be and when we expect to take the first batch of people.
There are suggestions in some reports, Mr. Mgijwa, that you suspect some of the companies that had these security contracts with Prasa may have been behind the vandalism we saw in the last couple of months that Prasa has been without security. Are you able to confirm that for certain, and what is being done to bring them to book?
Look, certainly we did not get as much value out of these security companies as we should have. That was the creation of very lousy contracts that they signed with Prasa that did not have the safeguards. So people expected to be paid even though the infrastructure was not protected. And we noticed that when we started talking about terminating the contracts, there was unseen, it was an attack on our infrastructure. And also we would have internally within ABSA discussions about which lines we would open. And even before we go public with that information, we would see vandalism again, rampant vandalism, which would suggest to us that there are people inside Prasa who are colluding with whoever is causing the damage to our infrastructure. Yeah. And very optimistic and very confident that if we have our own people working for us, we will have greater control over those people. And if those people are sourced from the communities where the infrastructure is, where the network is, they feel a greater sense of belonging, and that infrastructure belongs to them and it helps them, and they would be much more vigilant in guarding it.
Have you been able to identify those who you say are within Prasa and are colluding with the criminal elements? Who are they, and when can they be brought to book?
A few weeks ago, Mr. Mpondo instituted an investigation. That investigation was informed by the fact that there was an internal submission that was made to the administrator that was seen by very few people who are very senior within Prasa. And for inexplicable reasons, that submission found its way to one of the service providers who then uploaded it onto their WhatsApp group. So that would suggest clearly that there are people inside Prasa who are having inappropriate relationships with some of the service providers. You told that there were 4 senior officials who were fired by Prasa because they were involved, with these irregular contracts. It would suggest, at least on the surface, that these are the people who get some benefit. The security companies will not just collude with them for nothing, that they benefit something out of this, and that those security companies get an advantage so that they can continue, providing a service, at least ostensibly, because really there wasn't much of a service that they were providing if the infrastructure was being vandalized and stolen in their presence.
It means then that the very senior officials you are speaking about are those who are in the supply chain management of Prasa. You've been quoted in the media reports as saying there is undoubtedly a fight-back campaign by officials opposed to the turnaround and cleanup. People listening to us right now are asking themselves, but why aren't these officials fired already?
Look, you've got to go through due process. You can't, operate like a bull in a china shop. You have to, follow due process, make sure that, you don't do things that are outside of the law and regulations and policies. But there is an ongoing investigation that I've spoken about, which we hope that obviously, and I think it's important for me to say this, that I'm not by any way suggesting that everybody who saw that submission is involved in its leaking, but clearly one of the people or somebody who is linked with some of the people who saw that submission would have done what was clearly against the law and against the regulations. But we will continue to ensure that we work with the Special Investigations Unit, that we work with the Hawks, that whatever information becomes available to us, we share it with those agencies so that we root out all the elements within Prasa that are for bringing it to the point where it is now.
Very, very briefly, but if those very same senior officials remain, clearly they are frustrating the work of the administrator, Mr. Sibongisizwe Lupondo.
Yes, Mr. Bongisizwe Mpondo is getting a lot of resistance from some of the officials, but I mean he is working within the law, within the regulation, and I'm sure that in the fullness of time there are people who would have to be exited from the organization. At any rate, Prasa was described as a broken business because of the actions of some of the people who are inside Prasa. There's no other way that an organization could find itself with the problems that Prasa has had if everybody inside Prasa, if all the employees, if all the executives are acting in a manner that they should be acting, that we just wouldn't be where we are.
Makoseni Mkhitywa, thank you very much for your time.